Last month, I marked my wedding anniversary by dining at Burger King. I'm going to repeat that to be sure you heard me say marked instead of celebrate, and that I said Burger King and not some other restaurant. I drove into town, parked my car at Burger King, walked in and ordered coffee, fries, and a Whopper. Happy anniversary. When I was asked to be a speaker at the UU Summer Series, the general topic of transitions appealed to me. One subtopic, finding or making meaning in today's world, really appealed to me. That's what I do as a working journalist. I cover local arts and entertainment, music, drama, and the visual arts for the Durango Herald. The Durango Herald. I seek out creative people and the cultural organizations that offer rich, life-enhancing content to our community. My talk is about creating meaning. My title is Memorable Anniversaries, and here personally is where Burger King fits in. I've been a widow for a while. I mark wedding anniversaries in a particular way, a non-traditional way. In general, I look beyond cultural conventions for fresh ways to mark important life events. My choices may take a little more time than just copying what society prescribes. Here's the backstory. When my husband David and I were grad students at the University of Michigan, we questioned everything. Today we say, let's reframe that. If you were here last Sunday, you may remember our discussion after Judy's fine talk about reframing as one way we make decisions. If you're a curious person to begin with, rethinking or reframing is the way you are built. For a journalist, question everything is a ground rule. Well, way back in college, David and I looked hard at conventional middle-class ways, American ways, of celebrating life events. And we decided we wanted to do things differently. In particular, anniversaries and birthdays. Early on, we opted out of the conventional expensive restaurant anniversary. For our first year celebration, we walked to the Pretzel Bell in Ann Arbor, a popular college hangout, and ordered 2 beers, fish and chips. And I'm getting a shout out back there for the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. Thank you so much, Tekla. When we lived in Chicago, we marked our anniversary by buying hot dogs from a street vendor outside the Art Institute. After we moved to Los Angeles, we discovered Mel's famous Patty Melts on Ventura Boulevard. I think there's a shout out from the Griffiths and away. In Albany, New York, we decided to walk a few blocks to the Capitol Diner on New Scotland Avenue and order burgers. You get the drift. We moved a lot. Rochester, New York turned out to be our longest stretch anywhere. By that time, I had switched from academia to arts journalism. David was a computer systems specialist. He navigated the university's research library into the technological era. We both worked long hours, so we met for special dinners at Cheesy Eddie's, the Genesee Brew Pub, or my favorite, a sit-down deli inside Wegmans grocery store. In the mid-1990s, we moved to Durango and discovered fresh choices. We dined at Arby's, Taco Bell, and of course you already know about Burger King. Friends expressed dismay at our odd tradition. They celebrated at the Strater Hotel, Ken and Sue's, the Kennebec Cafe. We were invited to join them, but they would not join us at Wendy's. One year, we reluctantly agreed to step it up. 4 of us went to a famous local establishment that fit our requirements. Surely some of you know the Durango Diner. One frustrated friend challenged our anti-anniversary tradition. He said, "I think you're stuck in a graduate student fantasy. You're merely substituting one convention for another. You're a little smug about it, too. And you don't realize you've created your own sacred cow." Thank you, Roger Busley. After reflection, we thought, this is what good friends are for, to challenge you. And we seriously questioned our worn-out tradition. So, when our 40th anniversary approached, we looked for a new scheme. One day in the mail, we each got a notice from Durango's Digestive Health Associates. There's a familiar ring to that laughter. Our gastroenterologist, Dr. Patrick Gerstenberger, reminded us that our individual colonoscopies were overdue. Make an appointment. We thought about this. That's it. We could celebrate by having twin colonoscopies. Perfect. Those of you who have had this done know it is solitary, difficult, and mighty uncomfortable. It is not a dance in the park. And because you are woozy and weak afterward, you need a driver. You have to get home safely. So we telephoned and tried to make a joint appointment for the procedure. "Excuse me," the receptionist said, "would you repeat that?" We did, and she said, "That's never been done before. Sorry, you'll have to come in separately." We persisted, and she said she would inquire. No luck. So we decided to reveal our real reason. It would be our 40th wedding anniversary. We heard her chuckling on the phone. Great, the receptionist has a sense of humor. When she stopped laughing, she said she would inquire one more time. She did, still no luck. So we shifted to Plan B, a request for at least a joint intake interview. The receptionist paused and said she would ask one more time. When she called back, she simply reported, "Dr. Gerstenberger said, okay." On anniversary day, we arrived at 11 a.m., walked in, and saw the receptionist and 3 staff members smiling at us. They quietly said, "Happy anniversary." When we entered Dr. Gerstenberger's office for the intake interview, he stood up, looked at us, extended his hand, and said, "Mr. and Mrs. Reynolds, happy anniversary." Thank you, Marilyn, for that musical interlude, the anniversary waltz. Now, a word about birthdays. In our society, birthdays are a big event, especially for children. You can be sure I bought into the generic American tradition for all of our son's birthdays, especially when he chose Chuck E. Cheese's to turn 11. But here's a caveat. I have an aversion to the knee-jerk American pursuit of happiness. As a society, I think we've gone crazy about being or searching for happiness. That's the subject for another talk. So for today, I will say that the conventional song, happy birthday to you sets me off as cliche-ridden and often inappropriate. Thank you, Marilyn, for that musical interlude. Okay. That said, over the years, I've taken responsibility for my own birthdays. For example, in 2002, a year after 9/11, I turned 65. David and I flew to New York to pay our respects at the crash site and see how the memorial was proceeding. I particularly wanted to walk the Brooklyn Bridge. In my academic days, I taught American architectural history, and that beautiful bridge has long been a favorite of mine. As bad luck would have it, I was unable to walk the length of the bridge and back. A year earlier, a single-car accident left me with a spine injury. In New York, I walked with pain, and I realized I couldn't loop the bridge. While I waited on a bench, David walked the bridge for me. I was deeply grateful for that, and it was another reminder that I had married a good man. When I turned 80, I remembered that trip to New York, and thanks to successful spine surgery, I could plan a new birthday trip with the Brooklyn Bridge as the centerpiece. By then, David had died, but with creative planning and a good friend as a travel companion, I did what I couldn't do 15 years earlier. This time, my colleague sat on a bench as I walked the bridge alone. Remembering that earlier birthday with David, I completed a promise to myself, and my stroll had a double meaning. One more example, and I'll close. A birthday field trip to Silverton to visit one's gravesite may sound maudlin to some of you. A little backstory. When David and I moved to Durango, Silverton and its hillside cemetery became a favorite place to take visiting family and friends, especially my cousins from Finland. They visit family graves on every national holiday. It also occurred to us that Silverton Cemetery would be a lovely place to be buried. Over the years, we tried but had no luck buying a plot. We didn't own property in Silverton. But after David died, I tried a new approach, and it worked. That's a story for another time or for the discussion later. And I'll just say our gravesite overlooks the town. 2 years ago, I cajoled my play reading group to take a field trip to Silverton for my birthday, my 86th birthday. We picnicked in Memorial Park, then we walked up to Hillside Cemetery to read Thornton Wilder's Our Town. This famous American play takes place before World War I in a fictional town called Grover's Corners. It centers on two families and two young people, Emily and George, who go to the same schools, grow up side by side, and marry. The last act takes place in the cemetery overlooking the town, just as Hillside Cemetery overlooks Silverton. At first, my friends seemed a bit queasy, a little uneasy about this whole idea. We generally gather in each other's houses, we read a play once a month, but September of 2022, I decided to organize this unusual field trip. Colorado gave us one of its most beautiful fall days, and on the drive home, we shared rich conversations. This year, I will be here at UUFD for my birthday. Maryland's Unitarian Recital Series begins that evening, Friday the 27th. I plan to be right here, after dining, perhaps, at Taco Bell. My point is, we are always in transition, so be creative about your own marker days. It's one way to make meaning in today's world.